Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The story of Oklahoma's settlement is one of migration, survival, and the pursuit of identity and self-determination. However, buried beneath the widely known narratives of the Trail of Tears, land runs, and boomtowns is a lesser-explored history, that of the Black Natives. These were indigenous people of African descent who occupied a unique and complex position in American history, navigating a world where the color of their skin and their tribal affiliations shaped their destinies in ways unlike any other group in the country. The roots of Black Natives stretch back centuries, intertwining African and Indigenous lineages long before the forced removal of tribes to Indian territory. As European colonialism tightened its grip on North America, African slaves and free Black individuals often found refuge among Native American nations. Some sought shelter from slavery, while others were integrated through marriage, trade, and alliances. Over time, African influences became deeply embedded within tribal cultures, and by the time the United States began enforcing forced removals, Black Natives were an undeniable part of the social and political fabric of the Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, and the Seminole Nations. With the passage of the Indian Removal Act in 1830, entire indigenous communities, including their African kin, were forced westward into what would later become Oklahoma. The journey was brutal, a harrowing experience of cold, hunger, and death that came to be known as the Trail of Tears. For Black Natives, the journey was particularly fraught, as many of them were enslaved within Native American societies. Unlike European-style chattel slavery, indigenous enslavement often carried different customs and levels of autonomy, but it still placed Black individuals at a disadvantage, stripping them of rights and subjecting them to forced labor. Once in Indian territory, Black Natives continued to face hardships, but they also played a fundamental role in rebuilding tribal nations in their new homeland. Many served as interpreters, farmers, warriors, and diplomats, helping to establish the communities that would later evolve into towns and cities. Some found relative freedom in the new territory, living independently or securing positions of respect within their tribes. Others, however, remained enslaved under the 5 civilized tribes, especially among the Chickasaw and Choctaw, where bondage was more deeply institutionalized. As the Civil War loomed, the situation for Black Natives grew more complex. The 5 tribes were caught between the Union and the Confederacy, with some aligning with the South in an attempt to preserve their sovereignty and land holdings. This decision would have lasting consequences for their African-descended members, as the end of the war and the signing of the Treaty of 1866 forced many tribes to emancipate their slaves and grant them full tribal citizenship. While some tribes complied, others resisted, leading to decades of legal and political battles over the status of Black Natives in Indian territory. Despite these struggles, the newly freed Black members of the 5 tribes began carving out their own communities, many of which would become thriving centers of Black culture and economic activity. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, all Black towns emerged throughout Oklahoma, places like Boley, Langston, and Taft, which provided a haven for freedmen seeking autonomy and economic opportunity. These towns were more than just settlements. They were declarations of self-determination, places where Black Natives and freedmen could govern themselves, build businesses, and educate their children without interference from a society that often sought to marginalize them. However, the promise of these communities would soon come under threat as Oklahoma moved towards statehood. The infamous Dawes Act and subsequent land allotment policies dismantled communal tribal land holdings, reducing Native American territories and opening the door for white settlement. Black Natives, like their indigenous counterparts, were often defrauded of their lands through legal manipulation, violence, and coercion. The arrival of Jim Crow laws further complicated their status, as they found themselves segregated and disenfranchised under the same racist policies that targeted African Americans in the Deep South. Yet, even in the face of oppression, Black Natives persisted. The rich cultural legacy of African and Indigenous heritage continued to thrive in Oklahoma through music, art, and oral traditions. The resilience of Black Natives manifested in the ways they fought for civil rights, land rights, and the recognition of their tribal affiliations. Even today, the descendants of Black Natives continue to fight for their rightful place within the tribes that once counted them as members, challenging historical erasure and advocating for justice in tribal enrollment disputes. The history of Black Natives and their settlement in Oklahoma is not just a footnote in the broader story of American history. It is a testament to the endurance of a people who straddled 2 worlds and fought for recognition in both. Their story is one of resistance and resilience, a saga of individuals and communities who built lives against all odds, refusing to be forgotten. Understanding their legacy is essential to painting a complete picture of Oklahoma's history and acknowledging the diverse roots that contributed to the state's rich and complex identity. Their struggle continues, but so does their story, living on in the voices of their descendants, the landscapes they shaped, and the ongoing pursuit of justice that defines their legacy.